Western civilization is our birthright. It makes all good things possible.
Wait a second. Whether or not Tucker's claim repulses or galvanizes you, it should at least catch your attention. It is important we recognize the syllogistic logic being employed here if we are to unpack it. In Tucker's mind, what is known as Western civilization is also what is most strongly associated with positive aspects of modern life. I am assuming he refers latently to such things as access to water, health care, and participatory democracy. While these are all amazing advancements of human innovation, they are not without historical context, nor are they the result of an inherent structuring of human civilization. Tucker here makes an essentialist argument, positing that the most crucial element to these historical innovations is that they were Western. To him, Western civilization is the sine qua non, without which these innovations would not have come about. It is for their westerliness that they were good. Essentialism is a philosophic worldview. It provides a way of thinking about the world and its complexities. However complex the world is, essentialism provides a simplified model for comprehending it. Essentialism is the viewpoint that posits that persons are the product not of their social environment or upbringing, but rather of essential characteristics. An essentialist understands a phenomenon to be constituted by an unchanging quality, rather than by relations to things in its environment. To an essentialist, a person's character is predetermined, more or less, by demographical information. The problem with essentialism is that it discredits the role of socialization. In an article about the problems with essentialism, Anne Phillips states that essentialism is problematic because it naturalizes historically and socially constructed differences. If we are social products of either nature or nurture, an essentialist attributes the lot to the former of these. Essentialism constitutes many of the arguments and fodder for things in our everyday lives, as well as in our political discourse. Ronald Reagan's war on drugs approached the problem of drug abuse from the perspective that controlling the drugs would reduce addiction levels. What this perspective failed to heed was that drug addiction is the product of many factors, of which a person's social circumstance is very important. In a study on drug addiction prevention, the National Institute on Drug Abuse asserts, in principle number 1 of their research, that support, parental especially, is crucial in protecting children from drug abuse. The idea that controlling the drugs solves the problem is essentialist because it leads us to believe that it is natural for any experience with drugs to lead to addiction. Another essentialist ideology is that of white supremacy. The history of American slavery demonstrates this by showing us how an essentialist idea that black people are inherently inferior to whites can lead to monstrosity. Hitler's Nazi Germany, too, illustrates how barbaric essentialist ideas can be. In each of these, whites are seen as inherently superior, be it solely for their being white. A more casual invocation of essentialist ideas comes from the TV show Psych. The show follows psychic detective Sean and his partner Gus. In this particular episode, the duo team up with veteran partners to catch a drug lord. In this scene, they are granted entrance into a woman's house to inspect for clues, despite her initial resistance.
How'd you know she was lying? I'm psychic, Peters. How did you know she was lying? She's a woman.
Their claim here is that the fact of her womanhood informs the likelihood of her dishonesty. That the essence of womanhood is dishonesty. Now that I have explained the meaning of essentialist viewpoints, I wish to embark on a journey within our discourse. I will be using critical discourse analysis for my study to draw conclusions about the motivations behind media portrayals of hegemonic ideas, such as patriarchy and Western civilization itself. In critical discourse analysis, the subject matter is the discourse itself. Edward Said's Orientalism is a classic case study for my kind of inquiry. In it, he observed how representations of what was known as the Orient to the Western world, the Middle East in particular, were skewed. The West essentializes these societies as static and undeveloped, thereby fabricating a view of Oriental culture that can be studied, depicted, and reproduced, as Wikipedia states. Their ability to control the narrative about what constitutes the Orient allows them to exercise political control. Let's go back to Tucker Carlson of Fox News. In the aforementioned clip, He is defending a speech President Trump gave in which he praised Western civilization.
So it's worth remembering the basics. Western civilization is our birthright. It makes all good things possible. Undefended, it collapses. And so we've got to fight to preserve it, not just with airstrikes, but with a vigorous defense of our common values. Nothing matters more than that.
Reaches nearly 3 million people. How does this affect people's perspectives about Western civilization and Western culture? I introduce James Alsop, an alt-right YouTuber. In this video, he is defending Trump's shithole comment about countries like Haiti.
These countries, including El Salvador, Haiti, and others, aren't garbage dumps just because of their geography. It isn't like God flipped a coin and decided that some countries would be terrible and others would be awesome. Let's admit it, these countries are the way they are because of the people in them. Yes, Ali Stuckey, these places are corrupt and poor, but they aren't corrupt and poor by accident. Haiti is corrupt and poor because it's full of Haitians. This is a country that rebelled at the start of the 19th century, when the country's black population rose up to kill the white colonial oppressors. They massacred white men, women, and children, and by the end of the revolution, the white population was almost eliminated. And boy, did that work out well for them. By effectively killing anyone that knew how to build and maintain a civilization, Haiti positioned themselves as one of the world's worst countries by almost every metric.
Alsop gets so close to acknowledging the role that colonial history plays in the desolation of this country. Instead, he takes a turn in dramatic fashion. His claim that these countries are the way that they are because of the people that live there could possess some truth, to the extent that these people in their collective agency are allowed some self-determination. However, understanding the history, it is not this simple. Alsop reveals that he is racist with his comments about the Haitian Revolution. It is essentialist to say that these places are the way that they are because of the people in them, because this reduces the circumstance disingenuously. What is most significant to Alsop is that these people are not white, that they are Haitians. To Alsop, the essence of Haitians is that of cultural ineptness. Haiti is corrupt and poor because it is full of Haitians, as he says. This describes the situation as entirely contingent on the inner qualities of these people, rather than the external and relevant histories. He is essentialist for his own race as well. When he says white people were the only ones who knew how to build a civilization, he is invoking their westerly adeptness for civilization cultivation. However, this reduces them to, and describes their successes and failures, as owed to their whiteness, rather than to collaboration and the ability to adjust to an environment. Essentialism compromises our honest judgment by establishing and arriving at a conclusion before any actual observance has happened. Western civilization sets itself up against alternatives in many people's minds because it has founded itself on being supreme and distinguished in this way. This results in a hypocritical tendency to excuse the transgressions of the West, such as civilian casualties as the result of drone strikes, and to condemn the transgressions against Western civilization, or of non-Westerners. The situation in Israel and Palestine epitomizes the ways in which essentialist ideas about Western civilization have compromised our judgment. The Israeli human rights organization B'Tselem has recorded 8,166 conflict-related deaths since 2000, 7,065 of which are Palestinian, and yet the US, Canada, and the UK still send billions of dollars in aid. This is because Israel is considered a bastion of Western civilization in an otherwise hostile area. In this clip, Fox News host Sean Hannity answers a question from Cornel West about the situation.
Respect, but let me ask you this though. Yeah. Do you agree that there's such a thing as American terrorism and Israeli terrorism? Is there such a thing?
I do.
For you?
I don't think is my answer.
Terrorism. Is there such a thing as Israeli terrorism?
No, I don't believe so. I think Israel's the victim.
That Hannity doesn't think, as he describes, is no surprise. That Hannity doesn't think, as he describes of himself, is not surprising. However, that he has a hard time acknowledging that there is such a thing as Israeli terrorism, given the information about Palestinian deaths at the hands of the Israeli Defense Force or otherwise, it should not be hard to admit such a thing. This is largely because admitting that this is terrorism would implicate Mr. Hannity and many other Westerners who have observed of Western involvement in places like the Middle East as morally upright, seeing that they represent and make all good things possible. At this point, I want to bring up an alternative to essentialism that makes up for its shortcomings. Constructivism, or pragmatic social constructivism, is the viewpoint that knowledge is constructed out of experiences. It rejects the idea that there is any such a thing as an essence preceding existence. Instead, we are the products of our environments. In the book Constructivism in Education, Jim Garrison outlines the perspective. At the most basic level, he says, the biological organism must act effectively to coordinate itself with the environment that sustains it. To me, this demonstrates how interdependent our lives are with both other people and with our environment. It was, in a sense, a selfish inquiry for me to discover how often essentialist ideas parade as good ones. My audience are people like me, white and privileged, who have not questioned their worldview nor given others the time of day. Essentialist viewpoints demonstrate an inability to engage with the issue by continually evading addressing the root of the problem, which is nearly almost always in communication, relational, and interdependent. I wanted to do this study to shine light on something that we all likely do far too often, in hopes that I can improve upon this for the better.